Started. So, all right,
Oh,
peace, family.
there's somebody else in there.
Okay. All right, peace, family. We're tuning into the pro-black perspective on KWAZ Radio. Today, we're gonna go over one of the better descriptions of Pan-African nationalism, of Christianity and religion, uh, and it's going to be inside the book Yurugu. We're going to read chapter 2. We might be doing this every week, but probably not because it looks like the reading schedule is might be a little bit too intense. But
Yeah.
regardless, we're going to start it off. We only have one person today, right? We had maybe 4 or 5 last week, but it's all good. And it's going to be an enlightening discussion because this is quite possibly uh, the best description for Christianity that you're ever going to come across. You know, so without further ado, I mean, let's just have everybody introduce themselves. I mean, it's just one person, but we'll but brother, what can you tell us? Like, how did you enjoy the book? All that kind of stuff.
Mm, Hey, my name is Keta. Well, the book was very, very interesting. Well, the chapter was very, very interesting. I haven't read the entire book as yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the chapter about Christianity was very, very eye-opening. Being born and raised in a Christian home, a Catholic home, I realized how mental like covering it had on our thoughts and our ways and our behavior. And chapter 2 really enlightens and opens up the way that Europe unified it beneath Christianity to justify their expansion and their aggression. That's the main thing I realized. Religion and power came together through the Greek and the Roman experience.
Sure.
And the sister explained that very, very beautifully in chapter 2.
Yeah, I tell you, I think every Christian should read this. Because you kind of see, like, what I picked up from it is that you see how they kind of like just programmed us to repeat their own lies and to basically facilitate their own imperialism, their own expansionism, and that's something that we rarely get to see otherwise. Like a lot of like there's a talk. I'm probably not going to go over it too much today, but there's a talk inside of there about how people see Jesus as a revolutionary, and Muraba Ani just debunks that and really shows how, realistically speaking, the whole Christian faith is just based off of this imperialism, this expansion of imperialism, and so there's no revolutionary thing to it. It's that's just what it is. Hold on a second. This brother's calling me.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, I mean, I can't answer the phone right now. So what were you saying? So yeah. All right. So we're gonna jump into it though. Oh yeah. If you want to tell us anything about you though, that would be the time. But or maybe not. But let's go. Let's say page 120. So on page 120, if you could get to page 120, that would be appreciated. I'm gonna read maybe 6 passages today. I had like 12 that I wanted to go over, but I said let me just do 6 so that we can stay within a reasonable amount of time. And so of the 12, I mean of the 6, I'm gonna go to page 1 to 20, and we're gonna start off with the section on Messianism, because this is something that, as somebody who, like, I'm not a religious person, right? Or I'm not into the Wazungu religions, so I don't really know about Christianity. I don't really know about Islam. I don't really know about Judaism, right? If anything, I'll know about Christianity fairly well. For those of you who don't know, I had a debate with a Muslim scholar at one point, and I had to learn Islam for that. It was pretty interesting, but I never really learned about Judaism. Okay, so when Marema Ani, she quotes this guy Schoenfield about Judaism. It's so, like, I want to read this and then we can have. I mean, maybe we could since it's just two of us, we could probably do like 6-minute discussion on it, right? But I'm gonna read the passage. So it says, Messianism was a product of the Jewish spirit. It was inspired by the Hebrew reading of the riddle of the creation and destiny of mankind. Though some of its features did not originate with the Hebrews, they absorbed them and brought them into a relationship with the greater vision of the ultimate brotherhood of man under the rule of one God and Father of all men. The vision was not simply a cherished ideal, it was associated with a plan for its realization. According to this plan, God had chosen and set apart one nation among the nations of the world, neither numerous nor powerful, to be the recipient of his laws, and by observing them to offer a universal example. The theocracy of Israel would be the persuasive illustration of the world theocracy. It would be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, witnessing to all nations. Manifestly, according to this view, the redemption of humanity waited upon the attainment by Israel of a state of a perfect obedience to the will of God. By so much as Israel failed to meet the divine requirements, by so much was the peace and well-being of mankind retarded. Right? So she goes on. The characterization of Hebrew theology is an accurate statement of the European self-image, one type of person, one culture, whose task is to save all people. The vision of a larger world in relation to a special culture, one's own, contains the germs of a universalism, the critical ingredient of European cultural imperialism. Early in Judaism, the indication of this theme appears, a theme that we shall follow in this study as it develops both historically and synchronically through the various aspects of European culture. The Judaic statement also laid the groundwork for the secularization of history by interpreting history as the unfolding of divine law, profane lineal time historicity, rather than Hantu, sacred time, and sacred space become the sanctioning force. Let me just see if this is... Come again? Yeah, okay, I think that's enough. You said what?
Yeah.
Oh, you hear it now. Okay, that's cool. Alright, so I'll just put on a timer for 10 minutes. Why not? I'll just put on a timer for 10 minutes. So, what did you guys think about that passage? Brother, if you want to introduce yourself, you can do that. Okay, never mind. So, what do you guys think about that passage? I got 10 minutes on the clock.
Well, for me, it's the savior complex. The savior complex is established in this passage, and it's the way that they think that they have the goal or the objective given to them by a spiritual being to save the rest of the world, and to save like the barbarians, or to save the unbelievers. Yeah, but the sole objective is to save the rest of the world, which is a celestial duty.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were going to say something. All right, so what I want to say is, because I know, Keita, you're like a socialist, right?
Yes.
All
yes,
right,
I am.
yeah. So look at now. Here's the thing that's so interesting, because I like, this is something that really got me, right? If you read this passage and take out the state of Israel, right? Take out theocracy, put in socialism, put in Marx or whatever, right? You're going to realize that it's the same damn thing repackaged, you know, and it's from the same people. You understand? It's from the same people. I'm echoing on.
Which passage?
I'm echoing. You said what?
Which passage is that?
This is page 120. Messianism, right? So one other thing I want to say too is that I have a quote of Miriam Ani inside of my book of power, where she says, "Don't fall for the Messianism." This idea of this one leader, one great leader, blah blah. And I mean, that's another thing that really jumps out to me over here. But I want to say, it's like, here you have this guy Karl Marx, right? Who gets this plan for the human race, and it's just one culture, this one person, this one type of person who's going to save everybody. Come again? All right. So, I mean, if you're going to interrupt me and I stop, just finish what you were going to say so I could go on. But all right. But the idea is that, you have this one person, who has this law. They discovered it, this scientific law. And as we go into the book later, you're going to see, or as you go into this chapter, you're going to see this idea of science replacing religion. And of course, the socialism that we all look to is the quote unquote scientific socialism. So it's just kind of like, you see, like, embedded into even this Marxist dialogue is this European Uzumawazo. this European Asili, this idea that they are going to save the world with their ideas, their belief, and they're going to convert the rest of the world. And if you do not follow this conversion, you're just a capitalist pig, a capitalist swine. You're not as good, you're not as civilized, you're not as advanced. And of course, even if you look at the Marxist historiography, you'll see that the whole thing is an evolutionary chain. We go from they go from, I think, primitive communism to slavery to feudalism to capitalism to communism. And I mean, maybe I mixed up the slavery and the feudalism, but the point being that you have the same Judaic spirit inside of Marx, which is not ironic because Marx himself was a Jew, but he wanted to be a quote unquote modern reformist Jew. So it's the same thing packaged with the whole brotherhood of man. Instead of one God, it's this one one party pretty much. They're chosen. It's so fascinating to me that we kind of fall for the same trick over and over again. Whether it's from Judaism, whether it's from Christianity, whether it's from Islam, whether it's from Marxism, we always fall for the same religion, and that's right there is like that has this idea of this utopia, this Israel that's going to be peace for all of mankind. It's almost ridiculous. What would you say to that, Kata?
I understand what you're saying, but the thing is, humans are social creatures. We have been living in groups for a very long time. I know that the sister in her book, because in this chapter, she said that in the north was very cold and very brutal, and that's why a man was usually in very, very small groups or maybe alone, and that's why the role of the woman was reduced to just bearing children. If you compare it to the southern hemisphere, where it was fertile and women had a lot more to say. But since we are social creatures, don't you think that there is some way or somehow that we all connect to get certain things done? And I'm no Richard Marxist, but don't you think his critique of capitalism has some form of I'm going to put this, some form of positiveness in that when you have a small group of people, and it's the same thing with Israel, it's a very small group who says they came from Egypt out of slavery and they're going out to dominate the world, and capitalism portrays actually the same thing, which Marx actually criticizes. Yeah, he says that there are a small group of capitalists who are coming to dominate the world, and they are making all of us they're making all of us into slaves. And what he's maybe trying to say, I'm no scholar Marxist, he's saying that one day the slaves will rise, and the slaves will take control from that small minority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's the whole point. Oh, two people just showed up for some reason. But all right. But that's the whole point. The whole point is that they create the problem and then give you the solution, which is more of their control, more of their global dominance, domination.
True.
More of their imperialism. It's the same with Christianity. It's the Romans. That's one thing that we pick up inside of this chapter. The Romans are the ones pushing this imperialism. I mean, this Christianity. And it reminds me of this rap. I wanted to play this rap, but I figured I shouldn't. But there's this rap where called Rascast Nature of the Threat, where at some point Rascast says, now, after being murdered by Pilate, how can it be these same white Romans established Christianity? As to ask, if the Romans are the ones who killed Jesus, right? Then why is it that they're the ones establishing Christianity? And of course, it's all because of the imperialism. The same with, the same with this whole quote unquote, as you say, socialism, this quote unquote Marxism. If it is these, these Jewish financiers, if you will, right? And not just Jewish, but white financiers, whatever. It's this bourgeois class that's oppressing everybody. Why is it that they are also providing the solution for this egalitarian equality future? Why? Why is Karl Marx, as you say, petty bourgeoisie, and Engels a bourgeoisie? But I mean, that's just a separate question. That's just a rhetorical question, I guess. But yeah. Obviously there's more to it, but the main thing I would want to highlight is the parallel with Hebrew Judaism, and this like this savior complex of this one individual, and in the Jewish faith it would be Moses getting these 10 commandments or whatever, and then eventually leading the world in a global brotherhood, and then when it comes to Marx, it's another Jew who's given who derives Das Capital, scientifically, and then they're going to save the whole planet based off of that, But anyway, let me see how much minutes do we have on this question. I see two more people showed up. Let me see something. Yeah, so yeah, if you guys want to say hi or whatever, now would be the time. We only have a minute of this question, and we can go on to the next one.
Greetings, all.
Yeah, sorry, I was a little bit. I had like some trouble joining.
Yeah, I know you guys got me waking up early. I wanted to start 11. I woke up.
Sorry, my man.
I woke up early just to wait. All right. But yeah, everything's good. Anybody else? I guess you guys didn't hear that thing, but anything else you got to say, Cater, about this particular section, or we should move on?
No, you can move on.
All
you
right.
can move on.
All right. So for this next one, we're gonna go to page 126 and start off with the significance of Spangler. For people on YouTube, they can actually see the text. You guys could just open your books. Apparently, this PDF is available online, but only certain chapters. So this chapter was available. So we're gonna go to page 126. I guess you guys hear that alarm. And let's see if we can start it off. I'm gonna start it again. Oh no, let me just say. All right. So the significance of Spangler's observation is that while the overwhelming body of Christian formulation is taught by Jesus and interpretively elaborated by Paul was consistent with and not contradictory to Jewish belief, two critical and related features were added. These additional features molded the Jewish idea into an ideological statement that supported and justified not only a nascent European definition of value, but also a new brand of imperialism, an imperialism that suited the European ultima rojo. One of those features was the rhetorically universalistic and non-exclusive definition of the group or object that could be saved. The one was the related feature of the mandate to proselytize. Christianity then became the ideal formulation for the unlimited expansion of a culture with a supremacist ideology, and at the same time it provided the ideological tool for the control of the resultant empire through its rhetorical universalistic component. Let me just see if this next chapter is actually important. Oh yeah, okay. Why did the Jews refuse to accept Jesus as the Messiah they had long awaited? Possibly because they refused to enlarge the cultural national group with which they identified, and in part because they refused to become absorbed in, though always intimately ethno-historically related to, the larger ideological entity that was forming and that was to culminate in Western European culture. One refusal was dictated by the other, and a separation antagonism between the two groups, Christian and Jews, can be seen as one of the political identification and strategy worked out in religious terminology. The question then, as now, is one of allegiance. Insofar as the Jewish people refuse to identify with the nationalistic expression and destiny of the larger and dominant group whose territory they share, they constitute a thorn in the side of that group and have been, therefore, mistrusted and, what is worse, terrorized. In spite of this victimization and because of the similarity of value orientation and compatibility of ultima rojo and ultima wazo between the Jewish people and the larger Western European groups, Jews are not referred to as pagan or primitive and are not considered to be evolutionary inferior as other victims of Western European oppression have been. They are indeed totally Western in this sense. Even Reinhold Niebuhr recognizes the fact that Christianity was inconsistent with Jewish nationalism, but he fails to observe the new nationalistic statement of Christian ideology, or rather he mistakes its cultural imperialistic expression for a morally superior universalism. Okay, I'll start the timer. Alright, anybody have any comments on that, those two paragraphs?
Yeah, I think they are one and the same. Christianity and Judaism. The thing is, Christianity wants to expand to the wider world, while Judaism is like only on a one place, and this is this land of Israel that they call. They do not want to expand. They want to. But they are both but they are both are imperialistic in nature. Unlike Christianity, which wishes to expand everywhere because they have this objective and this order from God, the Jews just want to expand on this small piece of land. But they're both imperialistic, and they're both they're both nationalistic in their ways.
Yeah, and I also liked how she discusses how they are really supremacists. You know, like how, because I didn't know this about the Jews. Because I mean, actually, it's pretty interesting.
Definitely, they are supremacists. I have been to Israel. I just want to say I've been to Israel, and they are very supremacists. Very, very supremacist.
Yeah, I did not know this because there's this conversation on the Discord. Matter of fact, where this brother was like, this brother, he's a cool guy, Tav, or whatever name he goes by now. But the brother was like, you know, the Jews are our friends. You know, they do civil rights with us and blah 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 blah. And it's you know, they do civil rights, they give us housing, they do this. But part of the reason, but like, here's something I picked up on too. Because when I was younger, you know, if I was walking by a Jewish house on a certain day, they would, you know, like they were like, hey, can you turn on our appliances? Because, you know, we're not allowed to touch our appliances on a certain day. And I was like, that's so stupid. You know, you can't, like they're like sitting down in like a cold house or something. You know, they're like, can you turn up the heat a little bit? And I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't turn on the heat. You know, like I see a bunch of kids. And I was like, I guess I could, you know, whatever. That's not going to cost me nothing, right? And allegedly sometimes they pay people for that, but I wasn't like getting paid for it or whatever. But the point I would say is that, you know, they're doing this because they're like, you're a Gentile. You're not as good as me. You're an inferior. But I don't pick up on it, you know, because I don't know anything about their faith. I'm just like, that sounds like a stupid ass ritual. But they're really like, oh, let me find some inferior person. Here's a Negro, you know. Hey, can you do something that only inferior people should do? And I just, you know, not knowing, I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, that's what I do. You know, but that's like, it's just in them, the supremacy model. And so, you know, when this brother was saying, you know, just recently, you know, on the Discord, he's saying, oh yeah, they're our friends, blah blah. No, they look at you as an inferior. They look at you as a primate, a savage, a Gentile. You know, and in so doing, they like realistically speaking, this is what I want to say too. Because it's something that you might hear white people say, and you're just like, you know, oh, you dismiss it because it's a white person saying it, right? But the reality is that if there's this huge influence that they have with the media, and some people would say that there is this huge influence they have with the media, right? The media the way how the media portrays black people in the media is always disproportionately divisive. Like, it's ultimately divisive. You know, in the sense of, if I were white, I would say, yeah, black people are associated with crime, or black people are, or even when you're black, you're like, oh yeah, black people are being subjected by the police and blah 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 blah. And it's just the whole description. Even if, you know, white people might have more violence, or even if white people have by number more police brutality, you don't really hear about it, right? Or more incidents with police or whatever, you don't really hear about it. And part of the reason is so that the attention is off of them. You know? Like you don't really hear too many stories about that. Now, there are plenty of stories that do sometimes come out like, oh, this person was, you know, like this Jewish rabbi was paying for like organs or something. You know what I mean? Or this Jewish rabbi was paying for children prostitutes. You know, like a lot of terrible things, but they're not like, we're not as bombarded with it, because if we were bombarded with it, the attention like of white people would be turned towards the group that's selling their organs or selling their children into, you know, whatever. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not saying that that's like a characteristic. I'm just saying that, you know, realistically speaking, you know, this supremacy model, like, I didn't even know about this. And now that I see it, you know, from this book, I'm just like, wow. You know, like there's a game being run on us, and we're falling hook, line, and sinker for it. But I mean, that might not have been too related to the passage anyway. But anybody else have a comment on that while we still have time?
Yeah, absolutely. The supremacy model, definitely. They call. You definitely grew up in Brooklyn like me. and I also did the lights for them also in New York. I grew up in Crown Heights. When I lived in Crown Heights 5 or 6 years, and there were a lot of them, and I always put on the lights for them. But you're right, with the supremacy model, it's definitely there. You have this one God, and I spoke to them growing up in Crown Heights. You speak to them sometime, and they said, yeah, they're the only people who took this law, and the rest only the rest rejected it.
The only thing I would add is, sometimes we try to delineate, what we're talking about in terms of the Jewish imperialism, which we call Zionism, and this is where things get real choppy between the people who lean, towards the Eric Williams capitalism and slavery approach, and then between the Chinwezu and the Dr. Ani view, which is that capitalism is born out of, a culture that supports it, whereas the Marxists and the other socialists mostly are seeing it as, we're seeing just levels of oppression based on a jacked up economic system. So that's a whole topic. However, within that, we try to be careful not to issue like blanket statements where Jews are this or Jews are that based on the religion alone. It's different types of Jews. You got the European Jews, you have African, Jews. So that's one reason for that. And then two, you do have an entire Zionist theory being born out of Western Europe that before it had his eyes on Israel, had his eyes on Uganda. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that they've taken their eyes off of the interior of Africa in terms of colonialization or, they're encroaching in that, encroaching imperialism. So we gotta kind of know what we're dealing with, because Zionism as a force is just as corrosive and degenerate as any of these other systems born out of the Western European cultural asili. So it's one of those topics we could do a whole group just based on our relationship as Africans with Zionism and Judaism as a world religion, and the impact that it has on us. Then we could also break down into a smaller part and talk about the relationship that we have here in this country with the Zionists and the ruling class, which kind of roll up in there together. And it's already been a lot of work done on this subject from the people at the Nation of Islam, from Steve Copley Sr., and from an analysis that should not be ignored. And who else? And Baba Sekou, who wrote another book about the history of Zionism, the title of the book I'm losing right now. But I'm just throwing all that out there to say that, even though we're glossing over this right now, this is a bookmark. At some point in our study, we should come back to it and really jump into it even more.
Yeah. So Joe Cole in the comments on YouTube says, if any group comes to you and claims they are chosen by God to rule over the earth, you gotta watch out for them. And that's really that in a nutshell. I want to say that for those of you, because we only have like 1 minute for this one, I want to jump to. I was reminded of the this timer. I was reminded of that Malcolm X joke, or the joke that Malcolm X told. He said it was Senator Barry Goldwater in 1964 during his presidential campaign in Jet magazine. He says on page 210 of his book, he says that it was let me see. Hold on a second. He says some point the joke. He says that Senator said it told somewhere. He said it was that a white man, a Negro, and a Jew were given one wish each. The white man asked for securities. The Negro asked for a lot of money, and the Jew asked for some imitation jewelry and that colored boy's address. You know. But you know, it's just something that was like white people make.
That's a good one.
White people make some jokes about it. All right, so we're gonna go to the next one. Let me see, what page is that? 150. So we're gonna jump to page 150. Hope you guys can get to it in time. But I mean, knowing you guys is gonna be CPT time, so I'm just gonna jump into it. All right. Look. So page 150, it says all religions promote cultural nationalistic expression, and Christianity is only universal in the European cultural nationalism. In that European cultural nationalism is characterized by universal or international imperialistic ambition. This theme will recur again and again throughout our study, and its recognition is crucial to an understanding of the uniqueness of the European mind and political effectiveness of European cultural imperialistic ideology in the quest for world power. It is a theme that is masked and subtly expressed in the presentation of European culture. The international character of the European political ambition or objective has been continually and tragically, for its object, confused with the spurious universalism of European cultural and ideological identification. In many respects, of course, this is precisely the desired effect of such formulations that become part of the armaments of European imperialism. The proselytization of Christianity has perhaps the greatest culturally immobilizing and demoralizing effect on its objects. Let me just see if the next paragraph is actually worth, or is actually something I wanted to read. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Let's tie it in. So, since its inception, the Church has participated in and supported the European imperialist enterprise. European culture is no different from other cultures in this respect, since the relationship between religion and nationalism is most certainly a universal cultural fact. No cultural group goes off to war without invoking the names of its national gods, and the reasons for declaring war are usually reformulated on a conscious level in religious terms, or most certainly in terms that are consistent with the religiously stated ideology. The nature of this relationship in the European context is only special because European imperialism and European nationalism are so unique and intense. The uniqueness and intensity issued from the asyli of the culture and the ultima rojo through which it is expressed. But let us briefly trace the nature of the relationship between Christianity and the European imperialist venture. Let me see something. Yeah, okay, I think that's enough. Actually, let's read this next paragraph. Let's go. We have looked at examples taken from the Old Testament which serve as evidence of the way that the religious laws and precepts of the Jews supported and encouraged their militantly nationalistic ideology. This ideology was stated in terms that were to become pivotal in the rhetoric of European cultural imperialism. For example, the quest for the universal good of mankind, a good that, having been realized or at least recognized by Europeans, Jewish, Christian, civilized religious people, made it incumbent upon them to spread it among and thus enlightened, conquer, enslave, control those less fortunate and slower than they, Gentiles, primitives, pagans, heathens. We have seen how the Christian formulation elaborated and altered the Jewish conception, enlarging it to suit the expanded European ultima rojo and imperial world ambitions of the European. The Roman state had already conceived of the world imperialist objective politically, but Roman religion lagged behind, not yet sophisticated enough to support a world order. We have also seen in what matter the Christian formulation was co-opted and used in the Roman pursuit. Okay, I'll stop there. So I'm gonna put 10 minutes. What does anybody think about that one?
I mean, I don't know. I don't have any disagreement with that. And I think Dr. Wesley Muhammad calls it he spoke of this same system in reference to Islam and its matriculation and use in the world, but it's the same, as what Dr. Ani is describing here. The process was the same. and he called it an Aryanization and weaponization of of the old world, religions or whatever you call it. But basically saying that it wasn't necessarily created for that function, but it is Christianity is a tool that's being used by the imperialists, to further their efforts. So I mean, it can't be ignored. And I have a lot of atheist friends, but one thing that again, this is just some part of the All African People's Revolutionary Party training. We try not to get caught up on religious differences in terms of how it impacts our ability to work together and organize. So I refrain from, hurling insults and just generally attacking people based on their religious choices, based on my training. But it doesn't mean that we can't see that these systems have been weaponized against us.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I do think that's an interesting question right there, is to say that should we ignore that it's like somebody's religion, if the religions not I wouldn't even say that they're weaponized. I'd say they are like one of the main weapons for colonization, and if they are the main weapons for colonization, right, because of the way how they shape our thinking, is it the case that we shouldn't that we should ignore it, that because, and I mean, I think I'm going to go into, I think later on there's a passage that we want to read that goes along those lines, but I think maybe even here she talks about how, oh yeah, she says the proselytization of Christianity has perhaps the greatest culturally immobilizing and demoralizing effect on its objects. Like, the idea is that there's nothing better in the European weapon system to culturally immobilize and demoralize African people than Christianity. So is it the case that we have, like, that the Christians among us are not necessarily, like we just ignore that and say, yeah, it's okay to be it's okay to proselytize, or I mean, obviously, you hope they don't proselytize, but it's okay for them to keep the same system that was used to put us into these problems to begin with. I think that's also another question that, if anybody wants to answer, that would be
Yeah, I don't think we're particularly liberal about the the the, the evils of modern day world religion. I do think that it is something to be discussed as to whether or not it is the largest and most dangerous tool and weapon that's used against us. I think that it certainly has the way it's set up. It certainly can be a devastating weapon. But I think something underlying the fact that we acquiesce to some extent towards these world religions, that might be even more dangerous than that. And what is it that pushed us? And because we weren't just open arms to these religions. I mean, especially Christianity, we didn't really wholesale just start feeding into that wholesale until the 20th century in general, in America as well as in Africa itself. So what were the underlying factors that literally had us open? No, that literally had us open for uh, being led around by the nose by these religions. And that, I mean, I got a guess on it, but I want to know if anybody else is kind of feeling my train of thought on that.
Yes, I would start by saying that religion is a deification of the culture. We don't have to forget this one. So I mean by this that religion doesn't appear out of thin air. It has to have a substrate, and the culture is its substrate. And matter of fact, when you look at the book, it's fairly consistent with this acidy theme, because you can see that religion is the deification of especially the Christianity is the deification of the European culture, and in the book also she mentioned many times, she mentioned the process of objectification of the Europeans. They need to have object to control, and this process is called also reification. And so for me, the church is the embodiment of this, because when you look at it, the church is like the object of religion. Like, you have religion that is like something abstract, an idea, and the embodiment of the religion is the church, and it's the church that gives legitimacy to all the behavior. Like, the Pope is like the God on earth. He's like the minister of God. So for me, it's again this Asili and Utamawazo concept that are in play right now. So, but to put it in context, when you look at it, like the Jews took the religion and used it to impose their will to further their supremacy. The European did the same, and as the black, we use it to glorify cowardice. I'm sorry, but when you look at it, like we always find some verse in the Bible or something to not to stand up for ourselves. So basically, religion is not like good or bad, but it's like the expression, the deification of the culture, and that's why in our case, Christianity did a disservice to us, because first they broke our society, so we didn't have like a proper culture, a proper like backbone to stand on, and then after that they just like push forward those who would comply with Christianity, and that's the state we are in.
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually a good point.
I think.
Sorry.
So, yeah. I just wanted to say, I think that we have a slightly problem with Christianity, because it made us so docile, and that's our problem. We're so docile.
Yeah, I want to say that
I'm not sure if it's Christianity or just like, because when you look at it, like, I'm still trying to find the source of it, because like I have the feeling when they first came, they were targeting the higher members of the society. So basically, the scientists, the doctors, the noble, quote unquote noble people, to ship them to America. And when they did this, like, when you dismantle a society in such fashion, what can be left? Like, only like little people that have like no backbone to stand up, like, because like to USA, a lot of Mandingo were shipped there, and so those were soldier class. And when you do this to a continent, after, it's easier to manipulate the rest of the people, because you don't have the people that would stand up and organize for yourself. So the whole society is in disarray at this point. So.
Well, one thing I would say is don't buy into the Americans telling you that they all descended from Mandingo. No, I'm just messing. But no, I'm just messing. But it's a joke. It's a joke.
No, I'm not saying this, but you could clearly see, especially in the Haitian Revolution, a lot of Congo warrior were shipped there. You even had, like, from the French, they were from, I don't remember the date, but they were banning imports from Congo and some other part of Nigeria.
No,
So-
I know,
so-
I know what you're talking about. Actually, we're going to discuss what Cicely asked earlier and what you're talking about later when we talk about the missionary schools. But let me just look at the comments right here from YouTube. So Joe Cole again, and appreciate Joe Cole. So it says releasing Western religion is one of the hardest tiers to unlock in pursuit of decolonization of the mind, maybe the last tier. I think to get the majority of our people, we can't use that as a hook to get them interested in the movement because most would be deterred. Yeah, and I do want to just talk on that for a second. You know, as it was already mentioned, you know, like realistically speaking, you would focus on one of two things. You would focus on the elite, if you will, and you will focus on the children. You know, like converting the masses is not something that really, like Europeans didn't even do that. Like, and that's what Cicely was talking about earlier too. Europeans did not actually convert the masses of Africans, and instead what they did was they either converted children or they converted princes and kings and, you know, just leaders or people in high positions, or as already mentioned, they stole those people and removed them. But that's really like, so like, well, one of the issues that we have is that we tend to, like, I make it the distinction between nationalism and populationism, in the sense that we tend to focus on populations, you know, and saying, oh, we need to get the majority of our people. Nobody really converts the majority of anybody, you know? Even like the American Revolution was fought with like 1/3 of the people, and that's at best, and that was who was fighting eventually. But realistically speaking, it was like only a handful of people really got with the idea, you know. But like, that's generally speaking how the world works. You don't need everybody. You just need what they call a critical mass. But of course, you know, when, and we're going to go to page 162, so I'm going to scroll down to that. But the thing is that a lot of these ideologies of today try to convince you to focus on the masses, even though you can't really do anything for the masses, mostly because you don't have access to mass media like they do, you know. So it's just kind of like a moot point. It's just like a paralysis of analysis in a sense, you know. When realistically speaking, if you just have a certain body of people, you can do everything good. So anyway, page 162, we're going to jump right into it. I hope everybody reached to it. So we're going to start off with the first paragraph, which goes, these passages, and I think it's actually, yeah, it's going to be a little longer one. Yeah, so these passages reflect the direct and very political relationship between the European church and European imperialism. It is a relationship between brothers. Ironically, it is the subtle aspects of this relationship that have proven to be much more devastating in the long run to indigenous forms whenever the expansionist West has sought to exercise its control. The phenomenon of cultural imperialism, if it is to be distinguished from its strictly militaristic, political, and economic components, is that which strikes the death blow at a people's ability to resist aggression. You know, there has never been in the history of human race more expert dealers of that blow than Europeans. They alone have realized the full strategic potential of destroying the ideological life of a cultural entity. Christian ideology is an ideally fashioned weapon for the destruction of the self-image and value system of African and other non-European peoples. With its delusionary rhetoric of love and peace, its debilitating image of the non-white, non-European, backward, heathen, and its false universality, it has succeeded where guns never could in tearing people from the cultural base necessary for the formulation of an effective, self-deterministic ideology. A Christian with a gun in the armed forces is one thing. He might end up with a spear in his back. But a missionary with a Bible and a well-meaning smile who speaks of eternal love is wholly different. It takes a great deal of political sophistication to recognize him as the potential menace. This is a quote from somebody. Disease played a major role in killing off the Hawaiians, especially venereal diseases. Measles and cholera swept through the population, and alcoholism weakened the islanders so badly that they often succumbed to the common cold. But more important was the psychological sickness in that struck the islanders as their culture and religion disappeared. Then they say, Kanaka uku wale aku no I ka ohane. The people dismissed freely their souls and died. Tradition, wait, hold on a second. Oh, sorry. I think that was the end of the passage actually. So, let me see if this was something here too. So Christianity, so not to ignore a relevant stage of European development, we ask, what is between European Christianity and European paganism? Oh yeah, so basically, in the attempt to understand the Asili, the aspect of the European religious, this was actually a little interesting. Religious tradition cannot be overlooked. I have focused on the institutionalization of religion in the form of the Christian Church because of the way in which it expresses the underlying ideology of mythoform and culture. But for a moment, let us take a brief look at non-Christian Europe. Violence and battle were always at the hands and the lives of the men in the heathen period in the northwestern Europe. This statement by H.R. Ellis Davidson allows us to glance at the warrior gods of the northern Europe, Woden, Odin to us, blah blah blah. Basically, people at home, you could read this. The PDF is available in the Discord. But for everybody else, what did you guys think about the passages that I just read? And I'll start the 10 minutes.
This is the most powerful passage in this chapter, I think, and that is the key question that we were asking. Mm-hmm. If this was the most powerful weapon that they use, how could we still be a part of it? How could we still believe that you could be a Christian and have an African perspective when that's the most powerful weapon that they have? And you see it anywhere that they went, they used first the New Testament as a very docile instrument to get the leaders converted, and then they continue the mission of imperialism.
I would say I would have a question for you, like, because we know that our faith system wasn't static; it always evolved. You just looked at Egypt, the cosmogonies there evolved. So wouldn't you say that it's because leaders had to adapt, and since seeing the effectiveness of those new religions, they decided like to go along with it, not knowing what would come down the road?
I want to interject over here. So this is something that was inside of my. So originally I wrote like 3 books, right? The second one is called the Pro-Black Compendium, right? So you know the name of this podcast is kind of buying off of that. But one of the things that I wanted to discuss, I wanted everybody to know, were like the 10 different wars at least. And one of the wars is called the Akhenaten War, right? And so Akhenaten is also known as Amenhotep IV. But I don't know, for some reason I thought we would, I think the passage, or earlier passage we read, there's a reference to Akhenaten a little earlier, but I kind of just read the paragraph after, so that's kind of my point. But one thing that we have to know about Akhenaten is that Akhenaten is the root of Judaism, you know? So, but here's the thing that's important about that war, that division, that fight, is that when Akhenaten, now I don't think it's an African spiritual system as much as, Akhenaten was influenced by the foreigners to go about with this worshipful Aten, who's the son.
But wait, don't forget that Akhenaten was answering to corruption of the priest elite.
Here's the thing here's the real thing I wanted to summarize with, which is this idea that Africa crushed Akhenaten and his movement. The autonomous African, they said no. What he's doing is actually wrong. It's foreign. It's not good for us. It will destroy us internally. We have to destroy it. We renamed we call him his name was Tu'in-Aten, and they renamed him Tu'in-Amen. For those of you who might have saw the debate I had with Sister Amma, make sure you guys check it out if you didn't. But if you saw the debate, I was talking about Ammonism, and basically in that story of Tutankhamen, who we know him as Tutankhamen, if you've noticed from the back of his name, it has Amen in it. Before that, it was Aten, because his father Akhenaten named him after Aten as well. And then the Africans restored it to Amen. But the idea is that, and of course, if everybody knows that these same faiths, whether Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, they all use Amen at the end of their prayers as well. So it's not really too foreign. But the idea is that we actually had this debate in ancient Africa, whether we should accept this Atenism, this brotherhood of all races, this love and peace ideology, because a lot of Proverbs is actually taken from Akhenaten's words, right? We had this debate, and our ancestors said, no, this is going to destroy us, and we threw it aside. And then these same people kind of came back, but so like when you talk about the exile from Egypt, like they're really talking about this, get out of here with this nonsense, this Akhenatenism, and so it's a real story. It's maybe not really involving them, but it's a real story of a belief system that eventually like resurfaced and became a global, and basically empowered white people and foreigners into subjecting black people. So yeah, we had this debate already, and it was settled correctly back then. But like for us to have the debate again is just history repeating itself. And in the old adage, which is those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. So that's really what's going on with us, I would say. Anyway, anybody else have a comment on that? I might have taken too long with that one. But anybody else have a comment?
No, it's fine. It's really this. But I would say we. It's not like Akhenaten just came out of nowhere. Like there were like deeply rooted reason why he did what he did. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously he was wrong. He was wrong.
Well, I mean, I think
kind of motel.
I think what happened with Akhenaten is that even before him, because what happened is that Egypt is going through a slow decline, and by a slow decline, I mean like it's like a quasi invasion, like it's opening itself up to foreigners and foreign influence and like foreign rule, and like the foreign like a lot of it is like we are getting slowly colonized, slowly proselytized. So he's just kind of like a victim of that, because I think one of his predecessors earlier put like one of the Egypt is separated into different nomes. One of the nomes was ruled by like a whole foreigner, like a whole non-African. It was like the first time in Egyptian history that a non-African held a position of power in Egypt. So, but like Egypt was just in a slow decline at some point, and then eventually they had like exorbitant influence with Akhenaten, and then that's when there was just huge, like I guess you could say, cultural revolution in Africa that said, nope, get out of here, we're taking your son, we're taking your son, and we're going back to our old faith, but that's really like, and I feel like that was like what the debate was I was like, let's go back to the old faith because we've taken up a bunch of new faiths or even derivative faiths, but we haven't like we have to just go back to what we know was good for us. And this right here, Akhenaten stuff, is not good for us. Sorry, I think someone was going to say something.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that us taking that opposite direction of where Akhenaten was going is going to be like the the save all. It's not the I just don't feel, I don't know, maybe because I'm Nat Turner focused. I just don't think it's what it didn't have to be the way that it ended up. You know what I mean? There are other reasons and all types of manipulations happening that made things kind of end up to where they are right now. And the wrong turns have been taken pretty consistently throughout the last few thousand years on our part, and our culture in general. Our own culture has been weaponized and used against us, you know, and we seem to be oblivious, also to the violence impact. You know, we're not dealing with people who kind of take no for an answer, or oh, we don't do things like that here. They don't hear that part. So if they can't get it one way, they move it another way. And that is also something supported by their cultural silly. So they'll resort to, biological or chemical warfare, and all kinds of other types of warfare, a holistic warfare. And we're relying on this one aspect which is religion, which is only one part of our culture, but it's not the whole thing. In order to face a holistic, you know what I'm saying, onslaught. That's not what this is. We you know, and this is something that I miss a lot too in our discussions about religion. People always say, well, we need to get back to African spirituality. How? We never separated spirituality from our day-to-day life. We've never looked at it like that. We've never treated it like that. And all this Sunday worship and Saturday worship is very new to most African cultures. It's just part of our holistic lifestyle, wherein which our codes and mores and our asili is applied throughout the day, every day. It was never no church or time that you had to, you know, to acknowledge, you know, the creator or the creation itself. So for us to think that somehow if we all start practicing the old time religion, and by old I mean real old, you know, somehow we're gonna be, you know, we're gonna be free. I mean, I don't know. Again, you know, I'm not trying to focus.
I would say, I would add just that they stripped our spirituality of the worship component, because we had it. We had it, like when you.
They didn't strip.
All right, guys, let's not.
Our worship component.
All right, hold on a second.
They stripped our whole culture. They stripped our whole culture.
All right, so let's.
Which worship was a part of.
All right, guys, let's not. Well, because of timing, let's not go too far above past thing. Yeah, let's just go to the next one, and then we could continue discussion on that. Only because I have to do something eventually, you know. And like I said, I did wait quite a long time to start, you know. All right, so yeah, let's keep going. Did my computer freeze? All right, so
let's be clear. How long did you wait to start?
Like 10 minutes, I think, or maybe 15. Or actually, how much was it? 20? I don't remember, but it was a long time. 170s, page 170. Let's go. So it's gonna be Christianity Achieved. So it's gonna be the first paragraph again. I do want to just mention that I like that song, the Old Time Religion song, right? You know, give me that Old Time Religion. Y'all know that one, right? Okay. 170. Christianity achieved the unification of the new European self. It acted as a unifying element as it housed and solidified the nascent European Ultima Rojo, one inherited from a northern heathen past. It helped to redefine European nationalism as universal imperialism. This is why the Jewish statement was insufficient. European civilization has been so successful in part because of its ability to outer direct hostility, another example of political genius. When this ability is hindered, the survival of the culture is threatened. The destructive tendencies within are so intense and so endemic to the culture that they must continually be redirected. The co-optation of Christianity represented such a redirection of aggressive energy. Notice the difference in relationship between European paganism and European Christianism can be placed in its proper context. Pagan religions were aggressive, but not expansionist. They did not have the vision, and they were too separatist to be successfully imperialistic. Christianism took the concept of human blood sacrifice and raised it to the pinnacle of religiosity by sacralizing it in the symbol of Jesus. This acted as a sanction against the killing of other Christians. They then legitimized its actual practice by superficially, ideologically dehumanizing non-Christian, non-Europeans, and then sacrificing them to their gods. But this change would not take place overnight, and we have seen well into the 11th century the more sophisticated Europeans who had incorporated the vision of European hegemony and now identified as Europeans would fight and kill their more backward brothers. First Celts, Goths, Druids, Teutons, Angles, Saxons, etc., then finally and fiercely the Vikings, who would wage constant battle to protect their national identities as they defined them, unwilling to accept this new European consciousness, a consciousness that St. Simon would still be seeking to solidify in the early part of the 19th century. The identity of the long period of internecine wars can be understood then, not as the battle of the enlightened and the civilized against the unenlightened barbarians, but as a stage in the struggle to institute and consolidate a new imperial order. Okay. And of course, for anybody who's reading the book, you know there's a chapter on patriarchy, but I don't think we're gonna discuss that much today. So alright, so everybody, what can you guys say about that section? Or if you want to continue the conversation from last, I'm just going to start the clock at 10 minutes. All right. Anybody have any comments on that one? All right. What I want to say, actually, because it's something that we touched on, I'll just say this quickly. Something that we touched on in the last one that I read a little bit of is how she even goes into the paganism that Europeans used to have and how they were just a violent, warlike people. But they had all this aggression against each other. And it's actually a historical thing for white people to try to find a belief system that takes their inward aggression and turn it against other people. So one of the things that one of the things that I actually talk about in my other books, the Pro-Black Compendium, is this idea of Ram. So Ram is the founder of the one who conquers the Indus Valley civilization, and basically it's this like the originator of Aryanism it comes from this idea of these white folk, I guess, are fighting amongst each other, and instead of fighting amongst each other, this guy Ram, who we still celebrate in Christmas, right? I can't remember the name of this thing inside of Christmas, but I remember seeing like an ornament, a Christmas ornament that referenced this thing that happened in ancient time, But Ram, he says, he goes and studies inside of Egypt, common story. He studies among the black people, and he says, look how these black people have this peace, blah, 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 blah. What we can do instead of directing our aggression against ourselves is we can turn it against black people pretty much, And so they take over, and, a lot of people are going to argue, are the ancient people of India, the Dravidians, black people or not? That's not the debate here. But the point is that they do, in fact, overtake this Indus Valley civilization and kind of set the stage for what would be like global white supremacy. This is like way before Europeans or anything. But it's just kind of interesting how this parallel between Christianity forming this, because remember I didn't talk about this particular thing, although she does, like I guess you see later it says Indo-European, but she doesn't really talk about that as much as of Romulus, of Ram, and so on and so forth. Ram, not Romulus, but of Ram. But she does talk about Christianity, and that's what and it's the same kind of thing over and over again. That white people, they know that they have this internal aggression, they know they have this savagery, and what they do is that they kind of formulate something in order to take that outside of themselves and then eventually expand around the world. And that's just something that it's just a historical repetition that they know. And it's ironic because if you know about Hitler, he talks about being the Fourth Reich, or he talks about being the Aryans. Like they went back the same way that Hitler said, oh, we're going to be the Germans, we're going to expand around the world. The same thing goes over and over again. They study their past and they say, you know what, this is what works best for us, and they go for it. And that's something that we should do as a people as well. All right, sorry, I kind of took a lot of time. 3 minutes, but yeah. Anybody have any comments on that or on the passage?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This inward hostility is definitely there, spread around the world. When you look at what happened on the American continent with the Indians, when you look at Africa, when you look at New Zealand, when you look at Australia, they're really trying to push this hostility out of them, and they have succeeded in doing it, and that's why, like you said, we definitely have to study our past and develop ourselves to counter that, because this hostility will never end. Like the sister said, they're always trying it in different ways. Yeah, if they cannot do it physically, then they do it institutionally, or they try to do it spiritually or maybe religiously, but they're always out there with this hostility, attacking, always attacking.
And I think especially when we talk about how the sister was talking about Nat Turner Square, I want to highlight this one passage right here. It says European civilization had been so successful in part because of its ability to outer direct hostility. Another example of political genius, and it's like a compliment. I try not to compliment white folk, but the whole thing is that political genius for outer directing hostility, and we kind of even see this on our own continent where a lot of times the hostility was not necessarily outer directed. Like it might be that one kingdom and another kingdom were like, hey, you know what, I don't want to be, I need to survive, so I'm going to destroy you or I'm gonna, I'm gonna try to survive how this white guy is offering us survival. And it's like, instead of us, and then that's like a politically silly move, to be played by both sides, or to be pawns for another people. Whereas, the better way the better political decision is to be outwardly hostile. And I think that's really like when we if we were to return to the conversation from last thing, or from the earlier passage, that's really what it's about. If the Christians are pushing this love and peace on us, but they're kind of doing this hate and war against us, it behooves us to not notice that. That we can't have this brotherhood, this love, this peace, and it's not without irony that, again, like I was saying about Akhenaten, that this Akhenaten character, if people know what he represents the man of peace, the man of love, the leader of peace, the leader of love, and so it's just a normal, like I think that's really where it comes in. Like, of course we need to be militarily and technologically able to defend ourselves, but we can't necessarily undermine the idea of what about if our people really, really, really believe in love and peace with the people who are bringing hate and war. What if we really do believe in turning the other cheek? Is that not a problem for us? And I think that would be something that I would have added if we had more time on the other one. So anyway, anybody else have any comments while we still have time? Or do you guys want to jump to the next one? All right, so we can actually jump to the next one, because I unfortunately we do have a limited amount of time, right? All right, so we're gonna go to the next one, if that's okay. And actually, it's the last one.
Yeah, that's cool.
So page 186 is the last one. Let me see if I can get to it. All right, so in his book. All right, so this was excellent. I was like, we have to include this one. So in his book, Breast of the Earth, Kofi Awunor has an excellent discussion of Christianity's role in this regard, and tells us that the school was the most important instrument of missionary work in Africa. It was the key to the process that would strip Africans of their culture so that they could become part of the technical order, albeit at the lowest level. The school always took African children away from their elders and caused them to be ashamed of the very things that could have been a source of political strength and resistance to colonial rule. The new technology of exploitation required that the African become an imitation of the European. It required a total transformation that embodied new standards of success and social status. Christianity, of course, meant civilization. To be civilized was to become as much like the European as possible. Awunor tells us that the converts were also encouraged to acquire European material culture. The superiority of the European way of life was rigorously inculcated. This included living in the townships that the missionaries established, in opposition to the very villages in which the African extended kin lived. The missionary school discouraged the use of African languages. Christian conversion meant cultural change, a change essential to the donning of the cultural clothing of European technology. Christ was a white man, the saints were white, and the missionaries were white. Continuously, the African was told he was cursed in his adherence to the ways of his father, and because he was black-skinned, the implications were not lost to him. The fundamental erosion of the African's confidence in himself began with the first Christian convert. One of the most important ways that missionary education prepared Africans for capitalism and the European techno-social order was by destroying the integrity of lineage organizations that form the basis of the traditional communal structure. Christianity stressed individual salvation and the Judeo-Christian material culture, as Warner phases it, and it denounced all communal forms such as polygyny, the traditional education system, and especially economic communalism, i.e. the communal ownership and distribution of resources. Individualism was an implicit value of missionary Christianism as it revealed itself among those colonized by the Europeans. I'll just continue since this is the last one anyway. The civilized African behaved and dressed like and spoke like the European. He had been educated in European schools that began with the mission school and was therefore trained to uphold European values and perpetuate European control. The purpose of any education system is to perpetuate the society that it creates. The non-evolved or uncivilized Africans were an unsaved, uneducated, primitive, and non-Christian, and therefore a usable chattel for mines and farms. So thought the European and their civilized Africans. Missionary Christianism stripped colonized non-Europeans of everything. In this psychologically insecure state, they could then be immersed in the ideology of the technical order, and so many Africans themselves will speak of the blessings of Christianity because they are sold on the ideology of progress to which its Europeans adherents subscribe. Okay, so yeah, I think that might be enough. Or is this one good? Yeah, alright, so we're going to just go into the 10 minutes and, that's it. But, what did you guys think? For me, that was like, if you don't have the book, get the book. You know what I mean? Like this right here, and actually, I would also even get the book she mentioned, Breast of the Earth. I feel like I should get that book as well. But alright, anybody have any comments on that?
This is the Caribbean in a nutshell. This is the West Indies.
It's all of us.
Yeah.
It's all of us in a nutshell.
Okay.
I mean, and Krumah wrote about it in conscientism, how do you pronounce that? Basically saying you got three types of people, in today's world, three types of Africans. And one is that one that has been fully indoctrinated through the educational system and has accepted, by and large, its tragic Negro status, and works to uphold it on a daily basis. Then you have the elite classes, or the rich Africans, for whom the status quo seems to be working quite well. So even though they're culturally astute, and maybe they do value their culture because that's what works for them, at the same time, they are, gatekeepers. You know what I'm saying? And then you have a third type, which is those of us who are aware of this process that's trying to infringe upon our right to be a person, and who use whatever tools we come across in order to contradict those challenges. And I think that's what keeps me away from just wholesale. I have people, working on a Pan-African radio, and it's like, well, we don't want no Christians and we don't want no Muslims on the station. And I'm like, we're not at that stage yet. You know what I mean? And who's to say that a person who actually does practice these religions still can't embrace a revolutionary lifestyle? Because in essence, if they did embrace the principles of those religions, technically that's what they would be. So why don't we just try to work with what we have for right now, instead of alienating people based on the programming that we've all went through it, and none of us are exempt.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say none of us, but yeah. I ain't got nothing to do with no Christianity, but I know some songs.
No, the programming, we've all been very well versed in the programming.
Oh yeah, sure.
And we've all been victims of this system. So I mean,
yeah,
it's not like one of us is free from the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I went to an all Catholic school.
Damn.
And I was, the program as in the Caribbean is most of the schools are run by the church, and you do all that first communion stuff, and you program, you think white is right and black is bad, and I went like 12 years in a Catholic school. After you come out, you think everything in the north is better, and everything south in the southern hemisphere is just catastrophic.
I'll admit, I got that lesson in elementary school too. Well, I mean, I didn't go to no Catholic school. I went to some public school system. I went to the public school system, right? But I remember at one point, somebody was coughing in my class, so I got up and slapped their back, because that's what we did in our house. We slapped somebody's back when they were coughing. And my teacher said, what are you doing? That's so backwards. And I felt kind of bad and looked at my family like, are they backwards? Just off of that one statement. Although, I don't know if it's backwards or not. I just know that's something we did. But it's like I mean, for what it's worth, you can escape getting that cultural indoctrination. Like I got this son over here. He's not in the public school system or nothing, so he can escape. Like you can escape it, but it's really rare. For most of us are in fact a product of that colonial mentality. And I think one of the things I want to say from this chapter particularly is that like the schools always took children. It's like you don't have to. And the reason why I like this thing is too is because one of the things that I advocate for is us building schools, and realizing that you don't have to convert adults. You don't have to teach adults Pan-Africanism, because the reality is that the culture, I mean, the children replace the adults all the time. The children replace the adults. So, if anybody's paying attention to the news just like last year or 2 years ago, there's like the Lion King remake in America, right? Where everybody, because the average age of Black Americans, in a sense, is like 30 or something, right? Everybody knows what the Lion King is. Or the adults, like if you were to say the release of the Lion King, 50 years ago, people would be like, why are they like what, that kids movie, right? Or what is that? But now we're like, oh yeah, we grew up on that. Most Black people are like, yeah, we grew up on that. The point is that if you can reach the children, right, then you got it. Like hip hop. A lot of the hip hop reason why hip hop is so big is because it reached us when we were kids, and now we're like, oh yeah, that's our music, as opposed to when we were younger, like what we considered classics when we were younger was like James Brown and whatever, here in America I'm talking. I mean, some of you are not in America, so whatever. But when we would say James Brown and the Cordettes or whatever, or not the Cordettes, but the Supremes. There you go, right? But then but now the classics are Biggie, Tupac. You know what I mean? Like if you can reach the children, then you got it. And that's what white people are doing. That's what we should be doing as a people, is that we should just be reaching these kids and saying, look, we're gonna give. And here's the thing that white people do too, is that they give these kids good opportunities, because if you have a township, the township is functioning on English. You're not gonna learn English in a village. In a small village, you're gonna learn English in a Catholic school. And if people read of Water and Spirit, a lot of times these kids were like molested in these Catholic schools. But that's a whole other conversation, right? But I mean, and I guess it's common sense now, because we know the popes be doing that stuff, or not the popes, the bishops or whatever. But a large part of it is that if we can reach kids, give them the opportunities, the economic opportunities or the political opportunities based off of our own indigenous culture, then we got it. Because the playbook is right in front of us. And instead of us, and I mean, a lot of us would just look at it like, oh yeah, we're victimized, blah blah blah, we're losing, blah blah. And yes, that is the case. But the playbook is right in front of us. We can do the same thing. Go to Africa, give the kids opportunity to, as adults, function in a new community, or in a community, in a better position than and convince them of there being a better position, or whatever we want to do. Right? We can actually change Africa the same way that white folk don't need to convert you from your faith as much as they can just kidnap your kid, which is what they did a lot of times. They would just kidnap these children and then teach them in these schools, and convince them that the schools would give them the best opportunity or whatever. And then they come out, and then by the time these elders pass away, and they have like one or two people who held on to the faith, or held on to the old ways, whereas there's like 100 people going on to the new ways. Yeah, they become our parents, and then our parents, like for instance, my parent, they were super Christian, So that's another thing that I wanted to add to that. If anybody else has any comments, it is this is the time. Okay, so what I would say is this. I mean, I don't know if you guys. Well, I mean, it seems like everybody showed up, so it's not nothing too bad. What I could say is that it's tight, but chapters 3 to 5 of Yurugu, are about the same length as chapter 2. And so I would say that if nothing else, we should read those chapters for, I'm guessing since you guys are trying to do this every week, for next week. So is that okay with everybody, chapters 3 to 5? It's the same length as this chapter.
So chapters 3 to 5?
Yeah, it's about the same length in pages. Chapters 3, 4, and 5, yeah. So that would be...
I would definitely read it.
Okay. So that would be the next one. Hopefully it's not no CPT. I should have put that on there. It should have been 10. I said 10 EST, not 10 CPT, but I got you. Since they don't like me talking about it.
Man, I need a time change.
I mean, yeah, okay. But all right. But otherwise, I mean, I'm so far enjoying it. I'm loving this. This book is really good. I recommend this chapter for anybody who wants to read it. This one chapter is available online in the PDF. Like I said, it's in my Discord. It's not the whole book is available, but this is available. But otherwise, anybody else have anything else they want to say, or anything they're looking forward to, or anything like that?
Yes, I just want to thank everybody for holding the fort and making this discussion possible. Thank you guys.
Just want to thank all you guys for showing up, and reading this together really shows me more insight and more better perspective, because reading it alone is definitely not very good for me, because then I lean too much on my own understanding and my own influence, especially the last chapter, being grown up in a colonized environment like in the Caribbean. Then it's very, very difficult to, like the brother Onitaset said, you have like 100 people doing the new stuff from the elders, only 1 or 2 elders doing the old stuff. So it's good. Thank you guys.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Thanks everybody as well.
Yeah, thanks y'all, and it's an amazing experience and very powerful.
Yeah, and thanks you guys for pushing me to read this. I mean, I probably wasn't gonna read it. I'm not gonna front. I was after that first chapter, I was like, it's gonna take too long. But you guys on me to read 100-something pages, and it's like, sure. And then I actually had fun. I was actually reading it with my son. He didn't really know much of what I was talking about, but it was a nice little family bonding thing. So Asante Sana for that. So hopefully. Yeah, hopefully we could chat in a week, and do all that. So thank you so much, Asante Sana, and of course thanks everybody at home listening to the YouTube and all that, especially Joe Cole for the comments and conversation. But until next week, this has been the open discussion on Yurugu. Chapters 3 and 5, 3 to 5, 3, 4, and 5 are next. So until then. Shem Yem Hotep. Alright. Okay, so I ended it. Alright, that's fine. Thank you.